everyone, this is John Daly again. I'm here with Bernie Goldberg for another episode of the No BS Zone. Today, as you may have already noticed, we have ourselves a special guest. This is our first one ever, as a matter of fact. Kimberly Ross from the Washington Examiner. How are you doing today, Kimberly?
Doing really well. I'm very glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I was telling Bernie, you and I have come to know each other a little bit over the past few years, and I think you are a perfect fit for the No BS zone because you're someone who tells it like it is. Your views come from principle rather than partisanship, and you're not afraid to call out the either side when they're wrong. Although I will say right off the bat that you are totally wrong in your anti-American view that Forrest Gump is a bad movie. This is an ongoing issue, but we won't get into that today. Instead, we want to ask some questions about politics, and Bernie's going to start things off. Are you ready, Bernie?
All set. Kimberly, first, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Let's start with two of the biggest names in politics today, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I want to begin with an admission. I said that Joe Biden wouldn't run. I said you can go to the bank and bet every last cent you had that he wouldn't run. It looks like I'm really, really, really wrong. Every indication is he's going to run. How do you see it, Kimberly?
I do think he will probably run this next time in 2024. I think the biggest reason is because the Democrats, they don't seem to have anyone else that they can put up as a nominee. Joe Biden he's not a moderate Democrat in any sense of the term, but he does appear to be less threatening than I guess some of the others in the party, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, people like that. He has name recognition. He's been in office, decades and decades. So he would be the best option for the Democrats in 2024, especially considering I think Trump will try to get the nomination for the GOP. I don't know if he's going to be successful, but Biden is their best option. They basically have no one else to put up right now.
Sometimes it's important to state the obvious. He's 80 now. He'll be 82 in 2024. If he wins and serves a full term, he'll be 86. I mean, no disrespect to this president or any president, actually. But he's lost a few steps. Today, he's lost a few steps. He refers to Kamala Harris as President Harris. I mean, that's just one thing. Is he going to be any sharper when he's 86 than he is today? I didn't think the Democratic Party would let him run, even if he wanted to. They'd find somebody younger, somebody smarter, somebody something or other, anybody other than Joe Biden. And as I say, I mean, I admit it. I'm just dead wrong about this one.
Yeah, I think you're correct in that. I don't think adding more years to his experience is worth the outcome that might be with a failing, cognitive decline or physical health or something. It's not worth it. But I think the desperation from the Democrats shows that they look around, they don't see anyone else who would work for the position, who might win against the nominee. So they see him as the only alternative, which is, it's kind of sad because they're treading water and they're trying to see who else might play on that scale, the national scale, against whomever the Republicans might put up for office. And I just don't think it's going to work, especially if the GOP puts someone else other than Trump, which I hope that's the case.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. Can we assume that Joe Biden's best shot at winning again, if he in fact winds up running, is a Trump 2.0 contest?
Yes, absolutely. I think his best shot would be Trump running again, which when I look at these two, it's just kind of a race to the bottom. I mean, Biden is not doing well in the polls. Trump, I mean, what has happened since he was last on the ballot? January 6th happened, and his brand, I think, is actually weakening. There's not as much excitement about his campaign announcement. It seems to be kind of deflating. It was premature anyway. He tried to get a groundswell going, and it just doesn't seem like that's happening. But when you put the two side by side, considering all the baggage that Trump has, it does seem like Biden would win yet again, even though Biden's polling, what is it, like 43% approve, 50.9% disapprove. I mean, when voters go to the polls in 2024, if those two names are on the ballot, they're going to say, well, this guy's not as bad as this guy, and I really don't like either, but might as well pick someone.
Well, what happens if it isn't Trump? What happens if Joe Biden has to run against somebody younger, smarter, more articulate?
Mm-hmm.
His chances go down, no?
Oh, absolutely, they go down. And I think the best option for the Republicans in that scenario, there's no other name right now that's up on top, like close near to Trump, other than Ron DeSantis. And Ron DeSantis, he's younger, he has experience, he can be pushy and kind of in your face to the media without the added insults and rudeness that Trump just loves to throw in there all the time. He has congressional experience. He's a very effective leader in Florida. He has enormous support there. And just like when you talk to people around the country who don't live in Florida, they really love Ron DeSantis and what he stands for and his whole interest in fighting the culture war, which is like the big topic right now. So if he goes up against Biden, I think Biden would probably lose. But the issue is getting the Republicans to choose someone other than Trump, and they still seem so enamored with him that I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Exactly. And that leads me to my Donald Trump question. More than a few of my conservative friends have said to me, and these are people who voted for Donald Trump, have said to me, I wish he'd just go away. And it isn't just my few conservative friends who are telling me that. I get the impression people around the country, conservatives around the country, more and more are saying the same thing. I wish he would just go away. I've had enough of him. Let's bring on somebody else, whether it's DeSantis or Glenn Youngkin or Governor Sununu, very, very sharp guy in New Hampshire, Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley. And these are just to name a few. The question, Kimberly, is Donald Trump capable of just going away?
It's funny you say that because I've had the same experience with people I know who have been pretty sold out for Trump since he came down that escalator in 2015. And I've had them tell me the same thing. They're ready to move on. They want to turn the page. It needs to be a new chapter. They kind of appreciate what he's brought to the party and the interest in fighting the left and all that. But they're not interested in having him run again because of how detrimental it would be to the party in general and also the electoral chances in 2024. So many people I know have said that. They're just, thanks for your service, but let's move on. Yeah, so I don't think that Trump, I don't think he will go away though, even if he doesn't get the nomination. He wants to stick around and be some sort of effect on the party. Now, we just saw that with the midterms. The red wave didn't happen. It was more like a red trickle, a few red little drops. And a lot of that had to do with Trump's effect on the candidates and the continuous spreading of saying that he won, the 2020 election and that it was stolen from him. But he will still be interested in using his influence to sway the party toward the candidate he is supposedly supporting. Now, if that person loses, as with the people he supported in the midterm elections, I think he will go probably scorched earth on them and say, well, this guy lost because he didn't do it correctly and I would have won, so you should have chosen me and you guys are all losers again or something. I can see that definitely happening because it all has to be, no matter if it's a win or a loss, it has to be Trump-centric. That's the main issue with him.
Oh, I'd be shocked if it didn't happen that way. Okay, one more thing. Let's go from Joe Biden and Donald Trump to Yogi Berra, who famously said, predictions are hard, especially when they're about the future. So let me, before we move on to another subject, give us your prediction. What does 2024 look like, Kimberly?
Uh, I, I, I think DeSantis will run, and Trump is, of course, running. I think DeSantis will run, as others have said. This is basically his only shot at it. All the cards are lined up, everything's in play. And if he doesn't want to run right now, I'm not sure any future chance will come again, just the way he's doing in Florida and nationally, and kind of how he's stepping aside and being opposite of Trump in terms of behavior and trying to distance himself from him. So I do think DeSantis will get in the game, obviously not just yet. I also think Trump will stay in the game as well. He's already running poorly, it kind of seems right now. I think DeSantis will get the nomination. I'm hoping as well and predicting. And then if he does get the nomination, I think he will beat Biden. And that would be the best outcome for conservatives and Republicans. Will they choose that route? I don't know.
John is going to take over now about the day's news about classified documents found in places like locked garages in Wilmington, Delaware. John?
Well, I'm definitely gonna get to that. I wanted to ask Kimberly first. She had brought up the midterms. As you said, the Republicans did not do well in the midterms, but they did pick up a slim majority in the House. So after 14 or 15 rounds of voting drama, Kevin McCarthy is now the Speaker. Do you think this Republican-led Congress under McCarthy will get much done legislatively, being that the Democrats still hold the Senate and the presidency? Or do you see this as the next 2 years as being mostly about culture war, performative, rhetorical stuff?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, just if you look at the numbers and everything, the Republicans don't have a sweeping majority across both houses. And of course, they don't have the White House. So it will be definitely a back and forth. I think we're going to see a lot of victimhood on both sides of the aisle saying, well, the Democrats won't let us do this and woe is me and everything. And the same thing with Republicans, Democrats will do that as well. I don't think there's going to be a lot achieved. And they will use that. I mean, and they should use that as we go into the next election cycles, saying that more could have been done if Democrats didn't tie our hands and if they had wanted to, work with us and go across the aisle and be more bipartisan in helping the American people. But I think just like we saw with the speaker vote, all the Americans are going to sit back and watch what's happening there, saying, can't we just get to the business of the country instead of, trying to say something that will be on some show this evening, as a pundit or something like that. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be very successful in the next few years. And again, that's a good lead up to the next election.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Well, as Bernie said, he had brought up the classified documents. We learned over the past week or so that similar, not exactly the same, but similar to the situation with Donald Trump, President Biden was also found to have been in personal possession of classified documents. In this case, from his time when he was vice president. Some of these documents were even found in his home garage next to his Corvette, which we found out. Like with Trump, this seems really bad. What are your thoughts on this revelation? And do you think that there will be, legal or even political ramifications for either Trump or Biden?
Well, I think my first reaction to it was the instant the news came out, both political parties get on either side, and your guy is worse than our guy. Our guy wasn't doing it intentionally, or he has a great heart, and your guy doesn't have a great heart. And I am just exhausted with that. I mean, as a conservative who has never voted for a Democrat, but who's also sat out the last two elections, as far as the presidential elections, I just want to say, can both sides work on cleaning their own house? Not cleaning their garages out of classified material, but cleaning their own house in terms of addressing the issues that need to be addressed. Because what Trump did with the documents at Mar-a-Lago, that's wrong. It's bad. It's dangerous for those documents to be out there. And there were thousands of them. And now I think they only found like 100 classified ones, but he has tons of documents sitting there. And Joe Biden is not any better because you like him, Democrats. He's not any better because he has documents in more than one place. That's also bad. It is not appropriate for a president, former vice president, to have documents at their office, at their place of residence, and both of them need to be addressed. There's special counsel. I think yesterday it was announced Merrick Garland is going to investigate and there's going to be a special counsel. That is the appropriate measure. both sides need to be investigated. It also shows that both sides are more than willing to excuse the own bad behavior they see on their side and have no interest in, giving grace, I guess, to the person across the aisle. Now, personally, I don't think there should be any grace given. I think the investigation should be done. If it was in any way intentional, if there's obstruction of justice, I'm not in the Department of Justice, but it needs to take the proper steps, possibly, I don't know if there's criminal proceedings that need to happen, but it needs to be looked into. But it's disappointing, of course, that they would have these documents. It's also frustrating, the reactions we're getting and the articles I'm seeing, well, from all the left sites and everything saying, well, Trump was way worse than Biden. Let's be a little nicer to Biden because he's not as bad as Trump. No, that just doesn't cut it for me. I can criticize Trump for a lot of reasons, but I'm also going to criticize Biden when he does the same exact thing.
Yeah, no,
Let me
it's
just
funny
jump,
too.
let me jump in for a second. Let me jump in for a second. I know it's too much to hope for, but if they're both indicted and both charged and both go on trial, they could wind up as cellmates at Club Fed.
It would be good for
That would be
both
a
of them.
that'd be a good reality show.
Good for us.
Yeah.
I mean, this raises a question. In a country of more than 300 million people, how in the world did we wind up with these two back to back, more or less? Back to back.
That's what I think too. I'm like, are these people who are going to Washington the very best of us? And the answer is no. They're just the ones who crave the power the most and maybe who have the name recognition and their financial backing, because I know several people who would be better morally and just, to other people ethically.
John Daly would be
John,
better.
and John Daly, I mean, he would be great in the role, but, it's
Too many
just so
skeletons in the
funny.
closet.
It's just we don't have the best people there, and the best people are not going to pursue that sort of thing. So we're stuck basically.
Exactly. You're exactly right. The best people won't pursue it because they don't need the scrutiny that when they were 12 years old, they scratched their rear end in public. They don't need it.
Well, it's just sort of a little subtopic of the classified document story. Kimberly, you're on Twitter, you have a lot more followers than I do, so I'm sure you've heard this. Have you seen there's a conspiracy theory that I'm surprised by how many people have been presenting it to me in reply to some of my tweets, but they think that there are people within the Democratic Party that actually blew the whistle on Biden to kind of set him up for these documents to be discovered with the hopes that it would actually deter him from announcing his nomination. Have you seen that at all?
I have seen it probably 4 or 5 times. And as we all know, I mean, Twitter is just filled with conspiracies and everything. My take on conspiracies, when whatever it is, when it's someone involving who's in the government involving them, I don't think people in government are so smart to keep the conspiracy a secret. So if there were a conspiracy happening, I think we would get wind of it, like some actual proof of it somewhere. I don't think anyone set him up. I think there were mistakes made. That's the boring, realistic answer. Mistakes were made, and he's, getting in trouble for it right now. Does this affect his chances in 2024? No, because everyone who supports him doesn't care that he has those documents there. Same thing for Trump. Everyone who supports Trump, they don't care that he has those documents there. It's the people like me who, and you guys, I'm sure as well, who are just so frustrated with both sides that you are looking at everyone through the same lens, and you are calling balls and strikes as you see them, and you're not swayed just because someone has a certain letter next to their name. But I don't think it's really going to affect either of them politically in the future.
I think that's true. That was a good discussion. I'm going to go ahead and throw this back over to Bernie. He has some different types of questions he wants to ask.
Well, let's see. We talked about Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Yogi Berra, and let's end with the French novelist Marcel Proust. You ready for this, Kimberly? Marcel Proust, who in the 1800s would have people to his home and ask them, there were 35 questions that supposedly revealed who they are. I came up with 5 of the 35 to ask you. You can say, it's none of your business, Bernie, which will only mean that John will ask you the same question. Here are 5 questions I picked out of the 35. Which living person do you most admire?
My mother, I would say. She's an example to me in every way. She's not like a big name out there in like the media or the world or something, but she's a very kind, calm, generous person and very level-headed when I'm frenetic. So I appreciate her role and her as a mother. That's what I aspire to be. So she's my biggest role model.
That's a very nice answer. Present company excluded. What living person do you most despise?
Well, definitely neither of you, even if I could choose. Most despise. Man, I hate to, no, well, I think like my initial answer would be like Trump or something, but I really don't like despise. I kind of feel sorry for him,
Right.
more than despise him. I think he's a sad individual more than
I
anything else.
totally
So
agree.
yeah, that would be my answer, but then my reverse
Okay, so
answer.
let's say your answer is John Daly on who you most despise. Okay, let's move on from there. What do, what do you most value in a friend?
Um, like sort of a sticking with you loyalty, sticking with you through the ups and downs and the changes in life, because there are many of them. Yeah.
So Donald Trump exemplifies that
Yeah,
with his
of course.
throwing one friend under the bus after another. Who is your hero in fiction?
Hero in fiction. Oh, well, I'd have to say probably Elizabeth Bennet from Jane Austen's A Pride and Prejudice. I love Jane Austen's novels and stuff, but probably Elizabeth Bennet because she kind of annoys people with her honesty, and I feel like I do that sometimes. But she sees the good in people as well, and she can admit her mistakes, which these are things I'm working on, by the way. So yeah, I would say her.
And the final question, which I think is the most important, not just for this discussion, but in life in general. What is your idea of happiness?
Happiness to me is, for me, it's family. Being around your family and loving your family, growing with your family through all the stuff that the world outside your home has to throw at you. But just being content is a big thing. So contentment with your family and just your lot in life. I think that's a big definition of happiness.
That's a great answer. That would be my answer too. John, back to you.
Well, I think that's all the questions we had for you today, Kimberly. I want to thank you, for those willing to check, for those interested in checking out your work, Washington Examiners, where they can find you. They can also find you on Twitter. Anything else that's on your mind today that you'd like to talk about?
No, just the fact that I'm very happy to have been on the show. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Bernie and his work. And everyone I told about being on the show, they're, oh my gosh, Bernie Goldberg. And yes, they're actually letting me talk to him. I don't know why, but they're letting me talk to him. And of course, my mom, I told John this. My mom said, oh, I know who John Daly is. So there you go.
And it wasn't the
Hold on,
golfer, she said.
hold on. Time out. Your mother said, I know who John Daly is,
Well,
and didn't say anything about,
after she mentioned Bernie Goldberg, that is such a big deal, which I agreed. And then she said, oh, I know who John Daly is. And I said, you know what? I'm like, not the golfer, the author. And she was like, no, I didn't mean the golfer. I meant the author. And I was like, I'm going to tell him.
the kind words about me. I find them embarrassing. But if you have any more, let's do it before we go. Thanks,
Well,
Kimberly. Go ahead.
sorry, one thing. I saw a clip of one of your other shows and you had all your Emmys behind you. And I was like, I'm going to have to try to do something that's a little okay looking behind me because I don't have any Emmys behind me.
Well, I have a
This
nice.
is very important to me to state that I'm not showing off. It's an office that I have And it's the only background in the, I can't move him out of the office. But I'm not saying, hey, look, I have all these Emmys. I have 14, by the way, but I'm not saying that. It's just the background, just the background.
Well, Kimberly, in mentioning that you don't have anything behind you, this kind of brings me to show our appreciation for you joining us today. I wanted to let you know that we'll be sending you the special 2-disc DVD version of the Oscar award-winning Forrest Gump. You can set it up, you can open it up, set it up on a shelf behind you. I think that would be just a perfect addition.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you, John.
And John will be sending you a Mercedes-Benz also for
Oh,
your participation. We appreciate it. And
I can barely
please,
afford the DVD.
tell your friends about us.
Oh, yes, definitely. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Thank
Well,
you,
thanks
Kimberly.
again, Kimberly. Absolutely. And
Thank you.
just a little message to all of our viewers. We hope you enjoy we enjoyed having our first special guest on for sure. We plan to have more going forward. And as always, leave us your comments in the comment section. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there are other topics you would like us to discuss. We always read those and take those into consideration. So, Bernie, I want to thank you too. You're always here, but I want to thank you. Kimberly, thank you. This was great. We'd love to have you back on again in the future sometime.
And in
Thank you.
future shows, Kimberly, we plan to have George Santos on, but he was unable to come on today because he's performing heart transplant surgery in London. Otherwise he'd be here.
That's a good one.
I just made that
All right,
up.
everybody. Thanks for joining us, and y'all have a good week.